The Accountant's Ledger. The whiskey tasted like kerosene and old regret, but it was the only warmth I'd felt since crossing the territory line 3 days ago. I held the glass up to the oil lamp on the table, watching the amber liquid catch the flickering light. It looked peaceful. Deceptive. Outside, the wind was skinning the hide off the town of Blackwater Crossing, throwing grit against the shutters of the Tarnished Ace Saloon. Inside, the air was thick enough to chew. Stale tobacco, unwashed bodies, and the underlying metallic scent of nervous sweat. I sat in the corner. The shadows have always been comfortable territory for me. My hat brim was pulled low, a shield against the world, but beneath it, I wasn't missing a thing. I watched the room over the rim of my glass. The piano player in the corner was butchering a tune, his eyes darting towards the door every 4 bars. The bartender kept polishing the same spot on the mahogany, his knuckles white. They knew I was here. They just didn't know who I was yet. I took a drag from the cigar clamped between my teeth. The smoke curled up, blue and acrid, veiling my face. It was a good cigar, expensive. I figured Eladio Vargas owed me at least that much. 10 years. That's how long it takes for a man's soul to dry up completely in this country. 10 years since the Santa Fe payroll run. 30 good men slaughtered in a box canyon because a captain decided gold spent better than honor. My brother Jacob was among them. He was 22. He still believed in things. I didn't believe in much anymore. Except gravity, gunpowder, and the fact that every debt eventually comes due. I wasn't here for justice. Justice is a word used by judges in eastern cities who've never smelled blood drying in the sun. I was here for balance. I was the accountant, and Eladio Vargas's ledger was dripping red. So I sat, I drank his bad whiskey, I smoked, and I waited for his dogs to come bark at me. The batwing doors didn't just open, they exploded inward, admitting a gust of freezing desert air, and 3 loud mistakes walking on 2 legs. The music died instantly. The saloon went quiet, save for the wind outside and the heavy thud of boots on floorboards. They were Vargas's payroll boys, hired muscle meant to keep the sheep in line. The one in front, a slab of beef wearing a dusty red scarf, went by the name of Pike. He had loud spurs and an even louder laugh. The kind of laugh that advertised a man who'd never faced a real fight. Pike swaggered toward the bar, shouting for a bottle, king of his little dung heap. But halfway there, the silence got to him. He stopped, his head swiveling, until his eyes found my corner. The air in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. He nudged the 2 shooters behind him, and they changed course, heading straight for my table. I didn't move. I didn't speed up my breathing. I just watched the ash grow longer on the end of my cigar. Pike stopped right at the edge of my table, looming over me, blocking the lamplight. He smelled of stale sweat and cheap rye. "You're in the wrong seat, Grandpa," Pike rumbled, his voice thick with unearned confidence. "This table is reserved for Mr. Vargas's associates. Time to shuffle along." The entire room was holding its breath. The bartender had ducked below the counter. I slowly took the cigar from my mouth and tapped the ash into the ceramic bowl. I didn't look up at him. Not yet. I kept my eyes on the whiskey glass. "The seating arrangements," I said, my voice sounding rusty in my own ears, quieter than the wind outside but cutting through the silence like a razor, "are about to change." Pike blinked. He wasn't used to pushback. "What was that? You deaf?" I said, "Move." I finally looked up. I let him see my eyes beneath the brim of the hat. I've been told I have the eyes of a dead fish, cold, flat, promising nothing but an end. I saw the recognition flicker in Pike's face, a primal instinct warning him he'd just stepped on a rattlesnake. His hand twitched near his holster, a reflex. "Vargas isn't coming down tonight," I said flatly. "Mr. Vargas owns this town. He comes where he pleases," Pike spat, trying to get his bluster back. "Who the hell do you think you are?" I lifted the glass and took a slow sip. "I'm the man who's going to close his account." Confusion warred with aggression on Pike's face. The two men behind him spread out slightly, thumbs hooking near their belts. They were nervous. Good. Nervous men make mistakes. 10 years ago, I began, keeping my voice low, forcing them to lean in to hear me. A Union payroll convoy was ambushed south of Santa Fe. It wasn't Apaches. It was renegades led by their own captain. They killed everyone, shot the wounded where they lay. Pike went very still. Everyone knew the story of how Eladio Vargas got his seed money. No one spoke of it. "My brother took 3 days to die after that ambush," I said. The words tasted like bile. I sat with him. I listened to him beg for water I didn't have. The color drained from Pike's rugged face. He stared at me, really stared at me, and the pieces clicked into place. The long coat, the specific way I wore my iron, the face that looked like saddle leather left out in the rain. "Santa Maria," he whispered. "You're him. They said you were dead in Mexico. Your graves, the colonel." I almost smiled. Reports of my demise were optimistic. "Vargas, where is he?" I barked the question suddenly, shattering the quiet. Pike jumped. Fear turned to panic, and panic made him stupid. "Go to hell. You're one washed-up old man. We'll bury you here." He went for his gun. In a gunfight, time doesn't speed up, it stops. You don't think. You don't plan. You just exist in a space where training takes over reflex. Pike's shoulder dipped. A clumsy tell. My right hand moved. It wasn't magic. It was just economy of motion practiced 1,000 times in dusty backlots. The walnut grip of the Navy Colt hit my palm before Pike had even cleared leather. Crack! The sound was deafening in the confined space. The muzzle flash momentarily blinded me. Pike jerked violently as the .36 caliber slug punched through his sternum. The look on his face was pure surprise. He was dead before his knees hit the floor. I didn't admire the shot. I was already pivoting in my chair, the Colt seeking the next target. The man to Pike's left was fumbling with his holster flap. Too slow. Crack! He spun around, clutching his shoulder, crashing into a neighboring table in a shower of playing cards. The third man was smarter. He was already dropping to one knee, leveling his weapon. I saw the bore of his gun, a black eye staring at me. I fired twice. Crack, crack. The first shot took him high in the chest, knocking him backward. The second shot was insurance. He landed flat on his back and didn't move again. Silence slammed back into the room, heavier than before, ringing in my ears. Smoke drifted thick and sulphurous, stinging my eyes. 3 seconds. 4 shots. 3 men down. I stood up slowly, my joints protesting. I kept the hammer of the Colt pulled back. I walked over to where Pike lay, staring at the ceiling. I kicked his gun away, though he wouldn't be needing it. Then a creak from above. I looked up through the haze of gun smoke, toward the second-floor balcony that overlooked the saloon floor. There he was, Eladio Vargas. He had aged softer than I had. He was heavier, dressed in a fine silk vest that strained at the buttons. His face, once handsome and arrogant when he wore a captain's uniform, was now sagging with indulgence, and, currently, stark terror. He stared down at the carnage, then his eyes met mine. He didn't say anything. What was there to say? He saw Jacob in my face. He saw the 30 ghosts he'd built his empire on. "The ledger is balanced, Eladio," I called up to him. My voice was steady. This wasn't anger anymore. It was just work. He whimpered. Actually whimpered. He turned to run back toward his office door. I raised the Colt. The barrel extended my arm, my will. I took a breath, let half of it out, and squeezed. Crack. The shot took him in the spine. He arched backward, crashing over the railing. He hit a poker table below with a sickening crunch, scattering chips like gold coins. I didn't walk over to check on Vargas. I knew where the bullet had gone. I holstered the gun. The metal was hot against my hip. The saloon was deathly quiet. The only sound was the wheezing cough of the man shot in the shoulder near the bar. The bartender was slowly rising from behind the counter, his face the color of ashes, his hands trembling so hard he couldn't hold a rag. I walked back to my corner table. My whiskey glass was still there, miraculously unbroken. There was one good swallow left. I picked it up. It felt cold in my hand. I looked around the room at the wreckage, at the bodies that were just men a minute ago. Revenge. People think it's sweet. It isn't. It tastes like copper and ashes. It doesn't bring anyone back. It doesn't fix what broke inside you 10 years ago. It just means there are fewer bastards breathing my air. I knocked back the last of the whiskey. It burned going down, a fitting end to the night. I adjusted my hat, pulling the brim low again. I stepped over Pike's boots, pushed open the broken batwing doors, and walked out into the howling desert wind. My horse was waiting. The night was cold. I had nowhere in particular to be, and a lifetime to get there. Just another shadow moving through the dark.